Commander Taehyun stood motionless as the tactical display showed the last ships leaving Proxima IV. His scaled green hands gripped the rail tightly. The once beautiful world now looked like a broken toy, smoke rising from its surface. Reports of the dead and injured kept coming in without stop. "How are our people doing?" Taehyun asked calmly, though his heart raced. Officer Jiwoo looked up from her screen, her thin antennae moving nervously. "Almost all ships are away from the planet's pole, Commander. But the enemy ships are getting closer." Taehyun nodded slowly. The Galactic Confederacy had once been strong, with 7 different alien species working together. Now they were running away, their last strongholds falling one by one. The Void Dominion had killed billions and destroyed countless homes over the last 3 years. "Send out our last fighters," Taehyun ordered. "When the final transport is clear, put all power to the back shields." The bridge crew worked quickly, their 4-fingered hands moving over the controls. Most wore the same look of tired defeat. They had lost too many battles lately. The ship shook as it took fire from pursuing void vessels. The lights dimmed momentarily as power shifted to the shields. "Damage report," Taehyun called out. "Minor damage to lower decks," someone answered. "Shields holding at 60%. Taehyun felt the ship jump as it entered faster than light travel, leaving the burning world behind. A small victory. They had saved thousands of lives today, but the Confederacy was still dying. "Commander," Jiwoo said suddenly, her voice rising with surprise, "we're picking up a signal. An unknown ship is approaching our space." Taehyun frowned. "Is it void?" "No, sir. The engine signature doesn't match anything in our database." She paused, looking confused. "They say they're from a system called Sol." "Put them on screen," Taehyun ordered. The large display at the front of the bridge changed to show a face unlike any in the Confederacy. The being had dark hair framing a soft, rounded face with 2 eyes, a small nose and mouth. No scales, no antennae, no extra appendages. "This is Captain Minji of the UES Pathfinder," the being said in perfect common language. "We represent Earth and humanity. We detected your distress signals. How can we help you?" A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Taehyun studied the alien. This human, carefully. Their ship had appeared out of nowhere. Could this be a trick? "Scan their vessel," he whispered to his science officer. "Already done, sir," came the reply. "It's primitive by our standards. Their weapon systems are basic. They'd pose no threat to us." Taehyun considered their options. The Confederacy was losing worlds daily. Their supplies were low, their armies defeated. And now this unknown species appeared, offering help. "Captain Minji," Taehyun replied formally, "the Confederacy accepts your assistance. But I must warn you, our enemy is merciless. They destroy any who help us." The human's expression didn't change. "We understand the risks, Commander. My crew and I have been watching your conflict from afar. We may be new to interstellar travel, but Earth has a long history of warfare. Perhaps we can offer a fresh perspective." Taehyun's second-in-command leaned close. "Sir, they're practically defenseless against void technology. What can they possibly do to help?" At this point, Taehyun murmured, "We have little to lose." He raised his voice again. "Captain Minji, I invite you to dock with our vessel. We can discuss this further in person." "Gladly, Commander. Sending approach vectors now." As the transmission ended, Officer Jiwoo looked troubled. "Commander, are we really going to involve an undeveloped species in our war? Their technology is centuries behind ours." Taehyun watched as the small human ship approached, its engines glowing blue against the darkness of space. Sometimes Jiwoo, the newest player at the table, has the best ideas. They see things differently. The ship shuddered again as another jump took them deeper into safe space. Behind them lay the ruins of their civilization. Ahead, an uncertain future with strange new allies. "Prepare the diplomatic team," Taehyun ordered. And let's hope these humans have something we haven't thought of. Because right now, hope is in short supply. Rain fell softly on the tall glass building in New York as aliens and humans sat together in the large meeting room. The United Nations, once a place for Earth countries to talk, now hosted visitors from across the stars. Captain Minji stood at the window, watching water drops race down the glass. Behind her, 7 alien leaders from the Galactic Confederacy whispered among themselves. Admiral Hunjin, the highest-ranking military officer of the Confederacy, stood out with her blue skin that glowed slightly in the dim light. Her 3 eyes blinked in sequence as she studied the human representatives. "I still don't understand why we're here," she said loudly. "Your species has only just figured out how to travel between stars. The Void Dominion has destroyed worlds far more advanced than yours." The room fell silent. Earth's military leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It was true. Humanity had only reached their first star system 10 years ago. Their ships were slow and their weapons simple compared to Confederate technology. Captain Minji turned from the window. "Admiral, sometimes fresh eyes see what tired ones miss." A slender man with glasses stood up from the human side of the table. His movements were quick and sharp, like a bird. "I'm Professor Do-Yun," he said. "While you've been fighting the void for years, we've been studying them from a distance." He walked to the center of the room and pressed a button on his wrist device. A 3D image appeared in the air, showing swirling energy patterns. "This is what we call a quantum disruption field," Do-Hyun explained. "It works differently than your shield technology. Instead of blocking enemy weapons, it makes them forget what they're supposed to do." Chief Scientist Jimin, an alien with pale skin and 6 fingers on each hand, laughed sharply. "Impossible. We explored quantum technology centuries ago. The energy needed to create such a field would be—" "We've already built it," Do-Hyun cut in. "Not just a theory. A working prototype." The alien scientists stared in disbelief. Commander Tae-Hyun leaned forward, interested for the first time since arriving on Earth. "How?" he asked simply. Professor Do-Hyun smiled. "While your civilizations followed similar paths, focusing on energy efficiency and mathematical elegance, we humans took messier routes. We make mistakes. We try things that shouldn't work. Sometimes we get lucky." He tapped his device again, and the image changed to show a small machine with strange parts that didn't seem to fit together properly. "It's ugly, I know," Do-Hyun admitted. "But it works. We tested it against the weapons technology you shared with us. It disrupts the energy flow at a quantum level." Admiral Hunjin opened her mouth to respond when a high-pitched alarm cut through the room. Red lights flashed on the walls. A human officer burst through the door. "Captain Minji, our deep space sensors have detected an unknown ship entering the solar system. It matches the void signatures you warned us about." Commander Tae-Hyun stood quickly. "They found us. Already." The room erupted in panic. Earth officials shouted questions while Confederate leaders argued about what to do next. Captain Minji climbed onto the table and whistled sharply. Everyone stopped talking. "Listen carefully," she said calmly. "We prepared for this possibility. Protocol Exodus begins now. All essential personnel will move to Mars Base Alpha immediately. The rest will continue as normal to avoid raising suspicion." She looked at Professor Do-Hyun. "How long until your prototype can be moved?" 2 hours, he answered. "You have one," she replied. The building became a flurry of activity. People gathered important documents and equipment. Outside, transport ships began landing in the rain. Commander Tae-Hyun found Captain Minji coordinating the evacuation. "Your people are remarkably calm for facing extinction," he noted. Minji checked items off a tablet as she walked. "Humans have faced disasters throughout our history. We're good at running when we need to. And fighting when cornered," Tae-Hyun added, remembering Earth's violent history files. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that yet," Minji said. She paused, looking up at the rainy sky. "How long before the void ship reaches Earth?" 3 days at most." Minji nodded. Then we have 3 days to prepare a surprise for them. Commander Taeyun walked through the busy underground base beneath the Great Mountain on Mars. Workers moved quickly around him, carrying tools and parts. 6 months had passed since they first came to the Red Planet. So much had changed. The base stretched for miles inside Olympus Mons, the largest mountain in the solar system. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building strange machines that made Taehyun's head hurt when he looked at them too long. They shouldn't work, he muttered as he watched human engineers taking apart a Confederate ship engine. They were replacing the clean, elegant parts with rough human-made ones. Captain Minji appeared beside him, her uniform dusty from the day's work. That's what Chief Scientist Jimin keeps saying. Yet they do work. Taehyun shook his head in wonder. Your people are breaking every rule of engineering we've followed for 1,000 years. Rules are just things that worked before, Minji said with a smile. The Void knows all your rules. They don't know ours. They walked together to the main control room. A large screen showed Earth, partly covered in dark spots where Void ships had attacked cities. The sight still made Taehyun sad. Humans had lost their homeworld just as his people had lost theirs. Professor Dohyun's team has finished the last batch of disruptors, Minji reported. 500 units ready for deployment. Taehyun nodded. Your plan is still very risky. Risk is all we have left, she answered simply. The alarm sounded 3 days later. The Void fleet had arrived in full force, over 200 ships, including 30 massive dreadnoughts. They moved toward Earth with confidence, as they had done to so many worlds before. Their first attack destroyed Earth's visible defenses in hours. Cities burned. Millions died. The Void Admiral sent a message to all channels. Surrender now or be destroyed completely. No one answered. The Void ships moved to take positions around the planet. They didn't notice the small objects moving toward them from hiding places in Earth's debris field. Each object was barely larger than a car, small ships built from parts of old satellites and Confederate technology. Inside the Mars Command Center, Professor Dohyun pressed a button. Disruptors active, he announced. On the main screen, they watched as the small vessels reached the Void fleet. Each carried one of Dohyun's quantum disruption devices. Instead of attacking with weapons, they simply touched the hulls of the larger ships and attached themselves like barnacles. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the lights on 3 massive Void dreadnoughts flickered and went out. Their weapons powered down. Their engines stopped. The command center erupted in cheers. Professor Dohyun jumped up and hugged the nearest person, a startled Confederate engineer with 4 arms. It worked, Minji shouted over the noise. Their systems are completely disabled. Taehyun couldn't believe his eyes. For years, the Confederacy had fought the Void with matching technologies and strategies. They had tried to outthink and outfight an enemy that was simply stronger. They had always lost. But humans didn't fight that way. They used tricks. They built ugly machines that shouldn't work. They turned junk into weapons. The Void fleet, confused by the unexpected attack, began to fire randomly. Some of the small human ships were destroyed, but more kept coming, attaching their disruptors to more enemy vessels. They're retreating, someone called out. The remaining Void ships were pulling back, moving away from Earth as quickly as possible. For the first time in the long war, the Void Dominion was running away. Taehyun found Minji standing quietly at the back of the room. While others celebrated, she studied the casualty reports. Thousands of pilots had died in the small ships. Many were volunteers who knew they wouldn't return. Your species continues to surprise me, Taehyun said softly. You found a way to defeat them when our best minds could not. We're good at chaos, Minji replied. When things fall apart, humans find ways to put them back together differently. The Void will return, Taehyun warned, with new defenses against your disruptors. Minji nodded, and we'll have new tricks ready when they do. She looked up at him with tired but determined eyes. This is just the beginning. Stories of Earth's victory spread across the stars. On planets the Void had conquered years ago, people began to fight back. Former slaves sabotaged Void machines. Farmers poisoned Void food supplies. Children threw rocks at Void soldiers. We're getting reports of uprisings on 17 worlds, Officer Ju announced in the Mars war room. The room had changed over the past year. Maps and plans covered the walls. Coffee cups sat next to alien water containers. Humans and Confederates worked together at every station. Commander Taehyun studied the star map showing these rebellions. The Void is spreading their forces thin to control these uprisings. Good, said Captain Minji. That's exactly what we need. She stood at the center table, her finger tracing a path through Void territory. This is the location of the Void Command Center in the Rigel system. It controls their fleet movements for this entire sector. Admiral Hunjin shook her glowing head. We don't have enough ships to attack that base. It's too well protected. We're not going to attack it, Minji said. We're going to sneak in. The room fell silent. Taehyun stared at her. That's impossible. There's security. We captured a Void transport ship last month. Minji interrupted. Professor Do-hyun has studied it and can reprogram its identification codes. I'll lead a small team inside. This is suicide. Taehyun objected loudly. Even if you get inside, you'll never get out again. Minji smiled. That's exactly why they won't expect it. The Void plans everything using logic and patterns. Their computers predict what a rational enemy would do. But they can't predict humans very well. Because no rational being would do something so dangerous on purpose, Admiral Tunjin said slowly, beginning to understand. Exactly. Minji nodded. Their strategic algorithms don't account for deliberate self-endangerment as a tactical choice. Despite strong objections, the mission was approved. Minji selected 5 humans and 2 Confederate specialists for her team. They trained for 2 weeks, learning how to move and speak like Void officers. The day of the mission came. Taehyun watched the disguised transport ship leave Mars, feeling sick with worry. We may never see them again, he told Professor Do-hyun. Have faith in human unpredictability, Do-hyun replied. But he looked worried too. For 7 days, there was no word. The base was quiet, everyone waiting for news. Then, on the 8th day, sensors detected the transport returning. It's them. Ju shouted. They made it back. The ship landed safely. The door opened, and Captain Minji walked out, looking tired but smiling. Behind her came only 3 of her original team. We lost Sungho, Yona, and Ki-hun, she said softly to Taehyun, and Officer Lorith. But then she held up a small data device. But we got everything. Complete information on all Void fleet movements for the next 6 months. The intelligence was priceless. It showed every planned Void attack, every supply route, every weak point in their defenses. The combined human Confederate forces began to win battles. They freed planets. They destroyed Void supply ships. Meanwhile, Professor Do-hyun worked day and night to improve his disruption technology. Smaller, more powerful versions were now being built in secret factories on 20 different worlds. The disruptors are getting better, Do-hyun told Taehyun during a rare break. But the Void is adapting too. They're developing shields against them. Can you stay ahead of them? Taehyun asked. For now, Do-hyun answered, but they have more resources. 3 months later, Taehyun called an emergency meeting. His face was grim as leaders gathered in the war room. We've intercepted Void communications, he announced. They're gathering their Supreme Armada, their entire remaining fleet, over 500 ships, and they're coming here. The room erupted in worried voices. The Supreme Armada was the Void's ultimate weapon, save for only the most important battles. How long do we have? Admiral Tunjin asked. 2 weeks, Taehyun replied. Everyone began talking at once, suggesting evacuation plans and last-stand defenses. Only Captain Minji remained quiet, studying the tactical display on the table. Finally, she looked up, and Taehyun recognized the expression on her face, the one that meant she had an idea that no one was going to like. "Let them come," she said simply. Everyone stared at her. "You want to let the Supreme Armada reach Earth?" Taehyun asked in disbelief. Minji nodded, her eyes bright with determination. "We've been fighting their way too long. It's time they fought our way, on our terms, in our home system." She leaned over the table, beginning to explain her plan. By the time she finished, even Admiral Hunjin was smiling. The Void Supreme Armada arrived like a dark cloud over Earth. 500 massive ships blocked the sunlight, casting shadows across continents. Their first attack destroyed Earth's space stations in just minutes. Fires could be seen from space where their weapons hit major cities. Inside the Lid Void ship, the Supreme Admiral watched the battle with cold satisfaction. His gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones as he smiled. This troublesome planet would soon be gone, like so many before it. "Report," he demanded. A Void commander bowed low. "The human and Confederate ships are running away. Supreme Admiral." They'd break formation and scatter in all directions. The Supreme Admiral laughed. "Just as our computers predicted. These humans fought well for primitives, but they know when they are beaten. Move our fleet closer to Earth. Finish this." The massive Void ships moved forward, forming a tight group around the blue planet. They didn't notice what was happening in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Hidden among the rocks and ice were thousands of small ships. Many were old mining vessels, others were simple transport shuttles. All had been modified to carry Professor Dohyun's quantum disruptors. From his command ship near Mars, Commander Taehyun watched the Void fleet gather around Earth. Everything was going according to Minji's plan. He took a deep breath and pressed the communication button. "Now," he said simply. All across the asteroid belt, engines flared to life. The small ships raced toward Earth from every direction. They weren't trying to hide anymore. Speed was all that mattered now. On the moon, Professor Dohyun sat in his underground laboratory, surrounded by screens and equipment. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he watched the small ships approach the Void fleet. 10 minutes until contact, an assistant reported. Dohyun nodded without looking up. Everything depended on timing now. The Void ships noticed the approaching vessels too late. Before they could scatter, hundreds of small ships had reached them. Instead of firing weapons, the small craft crashed directly into the Void ships, attaching disruptors to their hulls before being destroyed. "What are they doing?" the Supreme Admiral shouted as his ship shook from an impact. "They're killing themselves to reach us," a Void officer replied, confused. In his lunar lab, Professor Dohyun saw that enough disruptors were in place. He turned a key and pressed the final button. "Activating planetary defense grid," he announced. All across Earth, hidden transmitters powered up. They connected with the disruptors attached to the Void ships, creating a linked network. The disruptors, now working together, created a massive quantum field that spread from ship to ship. On the Void command ship, screens went dark. Weapons shut down. Engines failed. "What's happening?" the Supreme Admiral demanded as his ship's lights flickered and died. Across the fleet, the same thing was happening. The quantum cascade rippled through the entire armada like a wave, disabling every system it touched. Captain Minji stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the Void fleet go dark. "Now," she shouted into her communicator. The Confederate and human ships that had seemed to be running away now turned and attacked. Without their advanced weapons and shields, the Void ships were defenseless. One by one, they fell. The battle lasted for hours. Many brave pilots died. But by the end, the mighty Supreme Armada was destroyed or captured. For the first time in their long history, the Void Dominion had been truly defeated. 3 days later, Commander Taehyun walked with Captain Minji on a hill outside Seoul. The city had been badly damaged in the fighting, but already people were clearing rubble and rebuilding homes. The sounds of construction filled the air. Your people recover quickly, Taehyun observed. Minji nodded. We've had practice at starting over. They stopped at the top of the hill. From here, they could see into space where a new ship was being built. It was unlike any before, part Confederate design, part human innovation. Even from the ground, they could read its name painted on the side. Intervention. The Galactic Confederacy has voted, Taehyun said formally. We would be honored if Earth would join us as a full member world. Minji smiled, looking up at the new ship. We accept, she replied. In the months that followed, human ships spread across the stars, helping free worlds still under void control. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in years, people throughout the galaxy had something new: hope.